So the difference between like the Wim Hof method or normal breath control and what I'm doing is that this type of breath work is much more in alignment with Eastern stillness practices and other energetic practices. The difference is like so subtle that it's actually interesting now that I think about it. A lot of the times when people are doing breath control or the Wim Hof stuff, or even free diving stuff, there's a goal of how long can I do this? Like you're measuring it, and I think even when people do meditation or anything like that, when you have this goal of I'm doing this thing for this amount of time, and that means I'm successful. And so with breathing, doing this thing for this amount of time, it means coming to stillness, right? Like if you're going to do a deep sea dive or a free dive or whatever, and go down for whatever, you're going to be holding your breath for like 5, 6 minutes, something like that. And the way that you do that is by slowing down your metabolism so that your air is preserved as long as possible. Because if you start to desaturate your blood, like if you drop down below 30% or more, or 20 or whatever, it starts to become like very, very, very difficult to remain conscious. And you only have so much air. And so you practice and you practice to like slow everything down and become very still, become very quiet, very peaceful, and then your air is extended. If the way that I'm doing it is you don't really care about the time whatsoever, you're actually trying to run out of air. So that if your metabolism's like super fast, like that's like great. You don't. This will be a lot easier for you. Like this is the more active and insane your metabolism is going. Like so, if you're exercising, right, like run, like it is insane. It's like this requires a lot of the times people require an insane amount of metabolism to do this type of breath work. So they'll go run around in circles at full sprint or like tumble and do cartwheels and like or go furiously like pedal a stationary bike nowhere, right? Insane behavior. Like imagine rowing as hard as you can on a machine that's not like on a machine that's not. Imagine getting in a rowboat and rowing as hard as you can in a boat that's not in water, right? That's the stationary rowing machine. Or like just swimming around in circles as if there's like a shark chasing you, and that's going down and doing laps, right? Like just exercise is trying to get your metabolism to go so high that it's insane. Like something insane is happening. Like you're in a life or death situation, the coach is yelling at you or whatever. When people are doing exercise, you're trying to make yourself insane. That's why it even looks peculiar. Like when you notice people exercising, like they look absolutely insane. Like even if they're doing like Tai Chi or Qigong or whatever, like exercise in terms of if you're trying to like analyze it as an alien or you're looking at it functionally, like the person has lost all purpose, right? Exercise is like a purposeless movement that you're doing just to stress yourself, to tax yourself, right? You're like imagine it's like creating an imaginary battle of some sort. Like that's what exercise is. And so like that is just trying to make your metabolism insane. Like just utterly psychotic. And people that are capable of doing that, like, the gym guys, like that's why they're good at exercise. Because they can just pulse that like psychotic metabolic behavior to where you're trying to use up as much energy and as much air as possible and to do something like insane. And so that's any sort of like and to do long breath holds, right? To have good breath control, you're doing the exact opposite of that. So it's kind of like two different camps of fitness. And there's the people that are like know how to do silence, and there's the people that know how to go insane, right? And they both whatever. So the breath control stuff, if you're doing it for time, is you're doing the opposite of the insanity. And that's why these two things can kind of work against each other if you don't know what you're doing. Because you're trying to go opposite of metabolic insanity, and so that's shutting down everything, so that your air lasts longer. With my thing, you're just trying to deplete your oxygen like in a conscious rhythmic way. So it doesn't matter if you're how insane or not insane you are. It's like you do the hold and just exhale because you want it to happen faster, but just try and get the blood to start desaturating. That's it. And so you'll sit there and you'll desaturate and you try and become totally comfortable doing that. And so that's after you do a hyperventilation. That's like you dive in. So that's like going in the water, and as you go down, 99, 98, 97, 96, 95, 90, whatever, down to 50, down to 75, then you can come up. And so the breathing shifts. The breathing ends basically like what you think of as breathing ends, and you shift to the blood pulsation. So instead of breathing in, you just make your blood pulse 50 to 75 to 50 to 75, or from 85 to 95. You're causing the actual blood oxygen content to pulse, and just letting the breath do whatever needs to happen to cause that pulse. You're pulsing directly. You're not trying to get the pulse to happen by manipulating the breath. The blood is creating and causing the breath, and so that's at a particular rate. And so as you pulse your blood in and out, that's your breathing rate. So like when you see me when I do the SpO2 graph, you'll see it hover between 75 and 85%, or between 85 and 95, or even up into the 90s, right? Like 97 to 93. That is still, the blood is under tension. Everything that's above 97 or so there's under a little bit of tension, which is that's like holding a balloon underwater. When you desaturate to around 93, is the balloon is at least underwater, and then the desire to breathe in or for the blood to resaturate is like this psychological buoyancy. And so to stay down, you have to you're under some sort of tension as you counteract that buoyancy tendency to like inhale and for the blood to resaturate. And so the breathing technique is just like the goal is to switch the activity of the self to the pulsation of the blood, and that causes the blood to start emitting basically light, or what you understand to be light. This way of breathing is so much more intelligent that if you do it, the effects are I don't know what would happen. Nothing crazy, but the amount of intelligence that starts to move through your body is you just start to see and figure things out, which can be a very big shift if you're not currently seeing or figuring things out. And then that pulsation is the swimming. Like instead of breathing, it's like you're doing dolphin kick. You're doing this blood undulation, this pulsing undulation, and then that pulsing or that flow is the thing going into all of your perceptions and your sense of body and like all this other cosmic mysticky stuff. And then this is it's like water. It's the medium of truth. Like you're interacting with water as the medium of truth. And so if you recognize water as the medium of truth, like the world suddenly becomes a very magical place. Like it's very wet. Yeah, water is literally awareness or consciousness. And so if you see, what you'll see is people on the spiritual or the philosophical path are like, I don't know, deer or lemmings or different animals. People are like different animals. Like, imagine people as different animals, and they don't have a concept or an ability to see water. All they can do is experience it. And so as they move through the world, they encounter rivers, they encounter floods, they encounter rain. Imagine being able to feel water but not see it. Like, you can feel water, and so certain areas, like, you just get washed away. And then in certain other areas, you can float, right? Imagine not, like, you can, if you get into a lake or whatever as this animal that couldn't see water, imagine, like, so some of them can get in and like figure out how to fly or float. Other people get in and sink. Nobody can breathe past a certain area. Or a river, you step foot in it and you get swept away. Some creatures could maybe ford it or what have you. Or sometimes there's floods. There's torrential downpours. You can't see it. And sometimes there's like a drought. There's drought conditions where you start to dry up and die. That's how people are towards consciousness, and the reason that people are so blind towards consciousness and they don't understand is because they're not willing to accept that consciousness is water, or the awareness, the looking part is water. That's where the looking is from. And so the activities of consciousness like have all these different behaviors that we see water doing, and it's invisible behavior. So people are mapping it using language, using like structure, the same way that we would map water if we couldn't see water. Like, you could map a river, you'd still be able to see a river, and then around that river is this like strange electromagnetic effect that we would call the feeling of the current in the river. But like, just imagine if you were like a deer or something and you couldn't see water, but you could just feel it. Not knowing that water is awareness makes the spiritual or the intellectual world as confusing as the physical world would be if you couldn't see water. And so if you don't see what water is, then you can't see the water in the spiritual world. And it's doing all the same things and moving through the topography of the Platonic realm of heaven the same way that it does here. It's a bridging element. It actually bridges heaven and earth, so it's very much in heaven and earth. And so this is the source and the cause of spiritual blindness in its entirety. Once you realize that water is awareness, like, the spiritual blindness is cured in its entirety, and you can see everything that everyone has ever learned.
was actually sweet when all the kids came and sat on us at the end.
I'm like running into what I think is normally a trauma wall.
I got down to 55 twice. I'm maintaining 60.
I'm like super stuck to the surface from filming it.
No. That's enough. 2 times was enough. That was a good one. I like it. What? I think we're done. You want to do something else?